my gosh. Hey, Crazy Dre Podcast.
Welcome to the Crazy Dre Podcast Show. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's your main man, aka Crazy Crockett, aka Andre's Podcast. Folks, welcome back. You know, today I'm going to talk about um, myself, my thoughts. I talked to about why I created this podcast. It was more to identify with being disabled, reaching out to other people with disability. That course of action has gone a little bit haywire. I did have recently a poet, a writer, a an author by name Mark Connor, and I would like to thank him again for being on my show. Uh, he has the book. It's about time. 1 million copies for sold for dad. But I'm going to talk about a kid in Byron Center who's getting picked on because he's uh, a foreigner from another country, and he is being picked on because I think he's Ugandan, and he was adopted, and I'm adopted. And he's also got a sister who's adopted, and she is got some form of cerebral palsy, like I do, but mine's more of a stroke. But I came across this story or this person based on his parents, and it was St. Patty's Day weekend. It's obviously St. Patty's Day Monday tomorrow, and after work, I went to a couple local bars on the east side of Grand Rapids. Uh, in Easttown, I went to Easttown Grand Rapids Sports Bar. I sat down. There was no one there besides a couple. This lady or this woman about my age, she could have been 10 years younger than me. She kind of, in a way, just waved at me as her husband's there. And for me, most of the time, most women will just ignore me, regardless if they're single or they're married or whatever reason. So it was kind of awkward, strange to have someone um, say hi to me at any occasion at a bar as a stranger, because I'm usually the one trying to make conversation with anybody that will talk. So she, we were talking about, well, not so much she, her husband and I were talking about their intersection. They're talking about uh, uh, Irish at the new location at Carter Plaza. They used to have the Irish on Ionia on the street. We were discussing how they're taking away the fun out of the Irish festival or Irish um, weekend by having it not on Ionia, where they used to have concerts, shows. There was bars down the street you can walk to and go back and forth. But they decided to put it in Coto Plaza, where they would have their own food trucks, and then people would still be kind of in and out of that venue. But there's no restaurants nearby that venue. It's just a big old space, and I didn't like it. But going to the original story I'm talking about, I wanted to talk about. She looked at me and she asked me what was going on with my left hand. Obviously, you've been told before. I have a condition with my left hand that's doesn't work. It's based on having a stroke or a seizure or whatever reason it was that back in the day they would try to hide reasoning of a child with a disability. So clearly, if I show up my left hand, you can see that the deformation affects my whole left side. We started talking about her son, and her son um, gets picked on because he's Uganda person. Cannot relate to people in their white community. Um, he feels like he's left out. Even though he has got a good group of friends, people in that area will still be picking on him and treat him as he's not one of them. She also discussed the idea of maybe having him go to an all black school, but a lot of uh, black kids would not be willing or participating into um, uh, letting his son into their groups. That's what she was assuming. Um, I personally wouldn't know if they would or would not accept him in the group in an all black school. I'm not going to be a sociologist, psychologist, or anything like that. But I would assume that they would try to maybe learn more about him, maybe have something more relatable to his son as a Ugandan child. But, I kind of try to tell her one thing, and this is my advice, total advice. Everything's temporary. And and in high school, everything is always temporary. And even if you go to college and if you go to get a job after high school and don't go to college, everything's temporary. And and I don't, to be honest with you, I remember getting picked on and I remember getting ignored purposely by those kids in Hudsonville, Jenison, getting mocked at for having a girl like me. And people would tell me that the girl only likes me because I was disabled. And to be honest with you, there is some form of truth behind that. But for him, I would tell him, like, you're going to go to college and you're going to meet new friends and you're going to go to meet new other people, different cultures, different religious beliefs, and you go and find a collect that you belong to. And even though he has his friends in school, I always tell people, people don't have to like you. And that's probably the honest truth. People don't have to like me. And a lot of people don't like me. And I know that. And I find it interesting that even if I don't have an opinion about anything about sports or politics or anything that's in the news, just me being in a room will sometimes put people off. Have, for example, if I want to have a beer, if I want to, socialize with other people, drinking, oops, drinking and and being disabled don't go together. And so people would give me that look on their face, like, "What are you doing drinking?" or "What am you doing driving?" Um, I just read a Reddit quote, a question, a statement about a young person working at a restaurant, and they ordered the wrong food for the customer, and this person was the one who took the new order and gave it to the upset, frustrated customer, and she overheard them say that they shouldn't allow disabled people to work. And my response to that was that there are people who are going to be ignorant, and those people are always going to be jerks. And I said that because of the 1990s of George H. Bush signing a bill that would allow people with disability to be allowed to work. That's why it's only been about 40 years of people like myself who've been employed. Now, clearly, there are people before me who have worked, who've gone to college, who are very intelligent, and they've had their own struggles. But if they were capable of doing the job, they would still be employed. Um, but I tell you the truth, folks. I mean, sometimes life is really just not fun. And if you're disabled, life is really not it's not fun. And if you don't look like some of your peers, or you don't look like part of the peers that you belong to, or that you live with, or your community that you live with, it can be a tough. And it, it must be real tough for a Ugandan a person to be brought up in a very Dutch German community, Christian Reformed community, and then you have white parents. So that's something I didn't tell people, that this Uganda child or this Uganda young man has Dutch German parents. A lot the same thing as I do. I could kind of relate to that. Of course, my situation is a little different than his is, but when I say temporary, for him it would be temporary because he'll be learning, going to college, taking classes. Um, and I told her to tell him that not only is everything temporary, but are you going to let other people talk you down every time that they don't like you or the way you talk, or because you're black or you're dark black? Are you going to stop working? Are you going to stop going to work? Are you going to stop becoming educated? Is that what's going to make you uh, forfeit your right as a person? And I told her and her husband, like, he should never quit, and he should never let other people um, uh, shout out their thoughts to him and put him down and make him feel uncomfortable. And basically, what that was really means that they feel uncomfortable about him, and he doesn't feel uncomfortable about them. So it's about them. And when learning that I have this neurodivergent disability, that my brain is chemically built differently. I have my own thoughts and ideas. Can be very opinionated. I can be very outburst. I can be really passionate about something. I can be really almost to a point where if I like something or love something, I will become obsessed with it. But what it doesn't really explain is my learning disability, not able to learn multiple subjects at the same time. My brain does not departmentize uh, classes or studies or anything like that. Uh, so for example, if I have to do math, reading, and science, my brain really has a difficult time departmentizing that in a reasonable time and space to in a semester. So, however, you know, I tell people I might be street smart, not saying that I can run off the streets and I can hang out with certain people and I can say certain things and make people follow me. That's not the point. What I mean by street smarts is that I can just kind of read people's uh gestures. I can sometimes, and so sometimes I might be wrong too. So that's not always the case. It could be a little bit of paranoia because I've been picked on so long or so much that I may be examining myself. But I give people when for example, if I work at Myers and a grocery store and I'm doing my job, either I have old people give me this look on their face like "good for you," or I get people around my age who kind of look at me like, "Oh, isn't it just kind of weird and cute, and it's kind of weird and then stupid that this kid or this guy's working at this place and he's doing this, and my job isn't very important." It's basically uh, I do receiving, shipping, and foods, and I help out in the bottle returns, and that's where I get most of my weird gestures by people by giving me that look of disgrace or a look of like, oh, it's like so wonderful and cute, and that's something that it really bugs the shit out of me. Excuse me for my French, But it's not fun. It's just not fun. I would rather have a brain similar like Nicholas Tesla. I don't want to be arrogant like Elon Musk. I don't want to be rambunctious like Donald Trump. But admire George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, Malcolm X, for a little different reasons. And and it's just life is every day is a struggle because I have to do the things I don't want to do. And a lot of you people out there who are listening to this is that are working at jobs, but your learning disability isn't physically and and cognitive disability like I do. I have a double whammy. So when I see people complain about their life and their jobs and their wife and their spouse, I'm like, are you kidding me? I mean, go get a new job. You can get a new job. Every job that I try to do in a factory or warehouse that I should have two hands for, I'm just not quick enough. And a lot of people would tell me like, well, you got to try harder. And then sometimes like, yeah, I really need two hands. I really do. I mean, to the motor skills. And, you know, but it just bugs me when I see people complain about their life and I personally think that people are overdiagnosed with other disabilities, especially like ADHD or anything like that. I just think that we all have some form of anxiety, uh, ADHD, some form of uh, um, procrastinating stuff, things that we should do, and I do it, and sometimes it's my fault. But I think that if you're an able-bodied person and you have an anxiety or some form of of a learning disability, you can work around those disabilities because you're an able-bodied person, and things can work better out for you. If you're in a relationship and you don't like your boyfriend girlfriend, you can always break up with them. And when I say this, I want to explain to people is like no matter how funny or humorous or even if I wanted to say that I'm attractive to certain women, they're not going to pick me over some other guy who's an able-bodied person. I've been through this. I've been proven to this over and over again. And I want people to really understand that. Like people think that it was my choice to be alone. It was my choice to be uh, having a learning disability and having physical disability. It was never my choice. And when I see people transgending or something's going on, you know, I can't wrap my brain around it, but I can't not s- disagree or agree with them either because I don't know what they're going through. I don't know what's people who are black in America are going through. And yeah, I sometimes wonder why we're so much an issue with this sort of stuff. But when I talk to people or when I see people with disability, it's tough. It's like, man, I mean, I see people at my workplace coming in and then out of the stores and it's just kind of sad to see people with crutches or a walker or something and they're roughly my age or younger and like I really do feel bad and I just and if you don't get much out of this just just, just know this: everything's temporary. Someday you're gonna find that girl or that guy that's gonna like you, as long as as long as you're a decent person, you go to work, you pay your bills, you have that same type of balance of respect for yourself. And if you don't like your job, you can always get a new job, and it'll get better as you grow. And if you're not in school and you think about going to school, I mean, this is, I'm giving you the motivation to. I mean, if you're not going to do it for yourself, do it for me, because I would love to go to get a formal education, be able to work for a business, any business that can grow, that can sell, that can make a difference in the world. And I wish I could play the guitar, and I wish I could play the drums, and I wish I could do a lot of things. And I have to always let my dreams go by. And it just, I just can't wrap my brain around people who are able-bodied people. I mean, there's at least 3 guys in my department who are doing bodily turns full time, and I just can't wrap my brain around, like, why are you here? One guy, he seems very sophisticated, civilized. He looks like he knows something about books or math or economics or anything. I mean, I know I'm being stereotypical because the way he looks, he's got his glasses on, he looks a lot like me, but a little bit more intellectually smarter. But I just can't wrap my brain around it. And a lot of people who are my supervisors, who are my managers, they don't like their jobs. They really don't. And I always question, why are you here if you don't like your job? I have to do those type of jobs because if I don't, it's they're going to put me on disability. You don't make money off disability. You can't make money. You'd be roughly making between $740 to maybe $1,200 a month, because I can collect disability, but it's not going to be that much. And if I get food stamps, I mean, that doesn't fit the bill. And for example, folks, if you're disabled, you're not going to be able to go out because you don't have no money to spend. So I'm always fascinated by people who are able-bodied. It just I don't understand why people waste their time with a healthy brain and a healthy body. There's a 17-year-old kid that we call Hercules, and he's a big Venezuelan muscle bodybuilding type person, and he's the nicest kid in the world. And he's very young. He's a little lazy, but when he comes down to fitness and working out and thinking about going to college, I'm trying to tell this kid to go to college to get yourself educated. I mean, I'd say you're going into fitness, you're becoming a bodybuilder without steroids, and then you're going to take steroids in the long run as you want to go to the next stage of your life, which I don't consider taking steroids a good thing to do, but it's his life, if it's his choice. But I do encourage him to go to college so that someday he can at least work at as a fitness instructor or a fitness facility person, or maybe work for a team as a physical therapist for the team in itself, or whatever team that he chooses to work for. But he works in my department in foods as a food clerk and a GM clerk in taking things off the truck. And I just don't get that. I don't get why people who are able-bodied people are like, I don't even know what's a good word. I don't know if it's lazy or it's just they feel sorry for themselves. Because if I felt sorry for myself, I would have collected disability from day one after high school. But I didn't. My pride was too big. I wanted to work. I wanted to live. And it's like, again, when that lady waved at me as I was sitting down, or yeah, she waved at me as I was sitting down at the bar. In some ways, like, it was really weird for me to be seen by a woman and being presented in a way that she is okay with me being in her little presence, in her little circle of her husband and the bartender. And I just, I mean, I don't get those interactions a lot, and and that's why I moved downtown because I got sick of being by myself. I got sick of going to one bar, sitting there watching games, and then people not really talking. I mean, they have their own life to live, but but it was it was it was nice to be around people my age because a lot of times, sometimes the people my age, the guys around my age, I have an old acquaintance of mine when I met about 7 years ago. He doesn't he doesn't work. He lives off his girlfriend's uh money, and 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 he lives off his parents' uh trust fund. And he just sits around at her house and he thinks that's work. He's basically house sitting. Then another friend of mine, or acquaintance of mine, he was, you know, he didn't like the place he lived, and he tried to live with me for a week or two, and I kicked him out because when I fell asleep. But it's unfortunate that because I'm disabled, I'm around people with other disabilities that are not productive. And I don't want to be a jerk about it, but it's and what I mean by that, I mean not other people with disabilities. I'm talking about people who are able-bodied people who are lazy or don't get their stuff together, and then they take. So it was nice to be around a couple who talked to me as a human being about the city of Grand Rapids and the old intersection where the Easttown Grand Rapids Sports Bar is now, and we were reminiscing about that in itself. And they they talked to me about uh, my own situation, about my family, my birth parents. And tell you the truth, I don't know if I ever would want to go back to my country. I don't think so. I don't think I would. I just don't think. Um, but I'm going to wrap this up. I want to thank you for listening to this Chris Dre podcast show. I'm going to probably try to do a podcast about the NFL free agency, uh, how I like Bosa with the Bills for $12 million 1 year. I think that's a good pickup. Um, as of right now, Aaron Rodgers is still a free agent. First time for him to be a free agent. I'd like to congratulate Michigan State for winning the Big Ten title. But I want to congratulate Michigan University for winning the Big Ten tournament as well. Um, great, great comeback. Um, played real well. Well, there's a little question about the point guards and guards, but I'll talk about that other time. Um, I hope this was meaningful for people. You can follow me on Spotify, follow me on Apple Podcasts. I would appreciate it. Um, I know this isn't for everyone, but if you know someone that is disabled, this is the reason why I created this podcast to address more of living with a disability. You can also find me on rss.com. My podcasts are on there as well. Um, but peace, love, and happiness. I'm out of here.